I want you to think about who the most influential people in this country are. Just think about it. Who are the most influential people in this country, dead or alive, that live in this country, don't live in this country, are citizens of this country, or not citizens of this country? I'm not talking about anything controversial politically here. But who are the most influential people in this country? If you have a suggestion, I ask you to raise your hand if you want to volunteer. If not, that's fine. Evan Dalgar. Congressman. Good. Do you have one in particular that you're talking about? Or just congressman in general? Congressman. Okay. Congressman in general.
John Boehner.
Great.
Was it Karen?
I'm going to ask you to hold on to that one. If you have something to say, Jonah, you just raise your hand. You're going to raise your hand and say mommy now? LeBron James. All right, for those of you who are actually interested in, if you look online, you got another one, Ari?
Oh, mine's right there, baby.
Yeah. You want to raise your hand and then say mine's right there? Bill Gates?
Roger Goodell.
Okay, great. Roger Goodell. Okay. If you look online and you search on the most influential people in this country, you will get a whole different array of people. You'll have athletes, you'll have writers, you'll have politicians, you'll have singers, you'll have all different kinds of people. Okay, good. So that was a great practice run. Here is what I do want you to do now. With your pen on your index card, and this is for your eyes only, so as soon as you write it, feel free to turn over your index card. You can use the sides with the lines, you don't have to, but write on your index card who you believe, and there's clearly no wrong answer here, who you believe is the most influential person in your life. Here's what I want to do right now. I want to make a very bold claim, a very audacious claim, one that you will definitely think I am incorrect about. I'm hoping that over the next few minutes I convince you that there's a shot that I'm right. Here's going to be my argument. My argument is as follows. Start very slow with very obvious assumptions. Let me know if I'm wrong. Everyone here lives in a home. Good. I don't care if it's a connected home, I don't care if it's a duplex, I don't care if it's a standalone home, a single home, a gated community, not. Everyone here lives in a home with a family. And everyone's family here has specific guidelines, rules, qualities, morals, different things that we try to embody and pass on to our kids that hopefully one day we'll figure out to pass on to our kids. We're all part of a family unit in a home. Is there anyone who's not part of a family unit? Great. I'm also going to make the next step now. That every one of our family units, all of our homes, are a part of a community. I don't think anyone here lives on a deserted island. I'm willing to bet that everyone here lives in a community with other people around them. And I'm going to say, and tell me if I'm wrong, I don't think I'm wrong, that every one of us who live in a community have a synagogue, a shul, that is associated with our community. Is there anyone here that I'm making a false assumption about? Will, that's fair. Yes, you're correct. Okay. So you have a remote community. You have a family. That's beautiful. Right? You have a remote community and a remote shul, which I do see from time to time. But you're right. It's not as immediate for you. What I want to say is as follows: every one of us are a part of a family, community, and a shul. Almost all of us. There's going to be a few exceptions that have been incredibly not just influenced, but molded by one individual. You agree? The school you attend, let's start there. The school you attend, every one of us, Judaic teachers. In fact, all the men in this school, other than Mr. Comus and the new math teacher, other math teacher. Mr. Forrester, that's also correct. All of us spent years, many years, studying in Yeshiva University, studying with the students of Rabbi Soloveitchik, the synagogues that all of us attend, almost all of us attend, not Chabad, but the other synagogues, whether we live in Boca Raton, and it's Rabbi Goldberg or Rabbi Brander who founded the shul, whether it's Hollywood, Rabbi Davis and Rabbi Weinstock, whether it's Miami Beach, if you go to Rabbi Bixton's shul, every one of our shul rabbis, all of my teachers, when I went to high school, they were all students of Rabbi Soloveitchik. And I'm not talking about that we were learning Bava Kama, the sugya of what do you do, of Hezek Sheinu Nicker, or Chatzi Nezek, and Tam. And when I say we studied by people who studied by the Rav, by Rabbi Soloveitchik. What Rabbi Soloveitchik, why I'm bringing him in today, why it's important for all of us sitting here, is because of two words. We live in a circle. I don't mean live on the circle. We live in a circle of orthodoxy that is branded modern orthodoxy. However you want to define that term. But I want to tell you what I view modern orthodoxy as. This might come as a shock, but this is how I view modern orthodoxy right here. It's a little weird? Okay. Let me explain to you why I believe that this is modern orthodoxy. And by this, I mean that. If you know somebody who's on a diet, they're a little obese, they're a little overweight, they're a little chubby, so they want to lose weight. Now there's two ways of doing it. The first way is what Slim Fast did. They made billions of dollars. Anyone know who began Slim Fast?
Daniel Abraham.
Very good. Fellow Jew, up in West Palm Beach. Absolutely, and he did very well for himself. Here was the philosophy of Slim Fast. You ever heard of Overeaters Anonymous? Anyone know what Overeaters Anonymous is? It's like Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's Overeaters Anonymous. The difference, though, is if it's Overeaters Anonymous, you're not so anonymous. But if you have a problem with eating, if you have a problem with eating, here's what Slim Fast says. You can't be trusted around food. You cannot eat. You have no self-control. You don't know how to balance yourself. So here's what we're going to do and make billions off of you. We're going to tell you can't eat. No carbs. No anything. You can't have anything. The only things you can eat are our products. That means you have a shake for breakfast. You get hungry a few hours later, we'll give you a little Slim Fast snack bar, which is really like mud and rice and seaweed, covered in chocolate. Then, when you get hungry again for lunch, you have another shake. Then, when you get hungry in the afternoon, you can have another snack bar, Slim Fast. And for dinner, we'll get you like a half of a piece of chicken with green beans, and that's it. But we can't trust you around food. You cannot be trusted because you have a problem. It's too tempting for you, and we can't trust you with food. So we're going to cut that all out. We're going to ban it, and you can only do exactly what we tell you to do. You're going to live in a box, and that's exactly how you're going to live. Weight Watchers is completely different. In fact, most of the popular diets nowadays, the South Beach diet, the Suzanne Summers diet, the Rambam diet, all these different diets that are out there today have a completely different approach. Anyone know how Weight Watchers works? What's the philosophy of Weight Watchers?
Oh, I know that.
Mr. Silken, death. How does Weight Watchers work?
You can eat what you want, but you have to eat very little of it.
That's not true.
Dean Hanford, would you like to...
It's on a point system.
It's on a point system. So it's what Matthew's saying philosophically, but yes, it's the point system. And here's how it works. You want to eat a donut? Is that really what you want? You want a donut? Go ahead, eat a donut. It's 4,000 points, so that's all you're eating all day. But you want a donut? Okay, we trust you. You want to have a bagel? Go ahead. It's 2,000 points. So you can have a bagel and a piece of lettuce and you're done. We trust you. We trust you to do basically whatever you want. But you have to be in control and find that balance. But we're going to trust you. That's the difference between Slim Fast and Weight Watchers. When Rabbi Soloveitchik got to this country, he saw that we lived in a world that was so much different than the world of Europe that he came from. He saw a world where we were all going to have to face challenges that weren't even remotely in anyone's mind in old Europe. The world that we were entering, the world that we are already a part of, is a world that is so different than the archaic world of just a couple hundred years ago. Let me ask you a question. Anyone here ever hear of polio?
Yep.
Raise your hand if you're familiar with polio. Good, we have some educated people here. Put your hands down. Raise your hand if you know somebody suffering from polio. Do you see the difference in the number of hands? Had I asked this question, what would you say though, 60 years ago, 70 years ago?
30 years ago.
30 years ago,
30
30 years ago, 30 years ago, you still know a ton of people. If I asked the question 60 years ago, half the room might have had it. Polio was one of the scariest diseases out there because it completely disabled you for life. Our grandparents had nightmares about polio. Our grandkids will probably never have heard the word polio in their lives. And do you know why that is? Aaron? Jonas Salk. Because he left over a little bit of cheese. The modern technology that we have, and this was something that Rabbi Soloveitchik held was a very important part of our lives. As humans, as Jews. He opened up the Torah. He opened up the most important work ever created to chapter 1 of that book. And do you know what he found? He found that God has given us the role of human beings. He told us what we're supposed to do with this world. He doesn't tell us why we're here. But he says, now that you're here, here's what I want you to do. I want you to uncover the mysteries of the world. I want you to control this world. I want you to dominate this world. And I want you to make this the best place that you can. And that makes our lives better and yet more challenging. I don't want it to take 3 days to travel from Boca to Hollywood. I want you to be able to do it, I don't know, 15 minutes, but it's certainly 25, 30 minutes. I don't want a world where people are still dying of polio. Frankly, I don't want a world where people are dying of cancer. And one day, hopefully, we'll get there. Hopefully, sooner than later. Can you imagine if Thomas Edison walked into this room right now and saw? Do you think Alexander Graham Bell ever thought that his little discovery of a phone, an iPhone 5? I mean, really? Do you think he could possibly? He'd be so utterly just shocked. The communication, everything that we have is unbelievable. And here's where something else that Rabbi Soloveitchik spoke about, the importance of secular education. If I ask you why it's important for secular education, anyone here know why? This school pushes a secular education. It happens to be, we try to work you hard, half of you still don't work hard, the other half of you hate our guts for making you work too hard. We can't find that right balance. But why do we push you hard? Not on the Judaic view, because you know why. But why do we push you hard on the secular side, on the college prep side? I mean, the term kind of gives it away. But we push you for many reasons. One reason is we want you to be successful in life. Practically, if you don't have an education in today's world, more than when your teachers were going to college. When we were going to college, none of us went to sleep at night worrying, oh no, is there going to be a job out there for me? I go to college, I get good grades, I may go to grad school, maybe not, I'll get a job. This generation's a little bit different. People do go to sleep at night wondering, how the heck am I going to get a job? And these people are graduating MIT, Harvard, and Yale. It's not so easy. So one of the things we have to do is make sure you get the best education to give yourself the best possible chance of getting a job. It's not a philosophical reason, it's just a technical, practical reason. So that's one reason. Another reason is because we're part of the world. We can't just insulate ourselves and think that we're going to be able to communicate with other people if we tell them, oh, I heard a great vort in the Seches Brachos today. You have to be able to speak to people. You have to be educated so that you can communicate with others. That's important. But to the Rav, it was much more than that. Having an education outside of what we would call Torah wasn't just for practical and expeditious reasons. It was because if we want to make this world the best place to make it, if we want to understand Torah the best way we can, then we need to be honest with ourselves and make sure that we're educating ourselves on both sides of the aisle. Our secular education is going to enhance and broaden our Torah education. I'll give you, the Rav was great at it, was taking what we will call boring halacha. He would have been the greatest tushba teacher in the world. I'll give you an example. I'm going to teach you something really boring now. It'll take me about 30 seconds. But then I'm going to show you what the Rav would have done. And this is, you'll see where the Rav's greatness comes in. There's a halacha, which you may or may not have learned. I don't even think you went this far back in Sefer Dvarim. There's a halacha, there's a mitzvah in the Torah, actually a lotas, a prohibition. You're not allowed to erase God's name. Period. You're not allowed to obliterate God's name if it's in writing, if it's etched in stone. You can't obliterate God's name. So if you see God's name, for example, obviously it's not God's name, I put a kuf, not a hey. If God's name is written somewhere, you're not allowed to obliterate it. You're not allowed to erase it, you're not allowed to destroy it. Fine. That's easy. I remember just a few years ago, I heard this crazy story. There was this Jew who, when he was growing up, he was completely unaffiliated, not religious at all. So he went out one night, he got himself a tattoo. Fine. What did he tattoo on his arm?
Elohim.
Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Up his entire arm. That's what he did. He got a tattoo. He's like, but I'm Jewish, so I can either go for the Star of David. No, I want to pay more. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. He gets himself a whole tattoo on his arm. Fine. No. Shema Yisrael, Yud Hey, then above Hey, Elokeinu, legit God's name on his arm. Fine. A few years later, he somehow gets attracted back to religion, and he, gets attracted to Orthodox Judaism, and now he says, I can't live the rest of my life with a tattoo up and down my arm. I'm a firm Jew now. I can't do that. Besides the fact that technically, you run into a lot of problems. If you got God's name on your arm, you can't go to the bathroom. You can't ever shower naked. You got technical problems. So you want to get rid of this thing. What's the dilemma though? You got God's name on your arm. You can't really get rid of God's name. So I remember he tried to off his arm.
Take a grab.
So that was one suggestion, but no one wanted to do that. What they did in the end, I believe, was they kind of basically used some laser, and they basically cut a little bit of the skin off. Everything went back, but they basically cut it up, and then they had a little thin piece of skin with God's name on it. But that's not so much my point. Here's my question, and here's the boring halakha I'm going to teach you, and then I'm going to show you something fascinating. I can't erase God's name. What would you say about prefixes and suffixes? Again, this is the boring halakha. What would you say? The Gemara asks, so what if I have a letter before God's name? To God, Le Elokim, to God, or Me Elokim, from God. That's a prefix. What about a suffix? Elokeinu, our God. Elokeichem, your God. Can you erase the prefixes and suffixes of God's name? That's the Gemara's question. Typically, you know what the Gemara says? Perfect timing. You know what the Gemara says? Well, one rabbi says you can, one rabbi says you can't. But then there's the third opinion, and that's how we follow. And this is what really blows my mind. He says if it's a prefix, go ahead and do it. You can erase the prefix to God's name. If it is a suffix, you may not. Darren, does that make sense to you? It does? You meant to say no. Okay. I can hear either one. I can hear either the yes, you can erase both. I can hear the opinion, no, you may not erase both. But there's an opinion in the Gemara. Where's Ostrowski? Where's Ostrowski? Isn't that random? I mean, come on. I can hear either argument, but this, the rabbis are just making it up. It's crazy. It's random. Here is what Rabbi Soloveitchik, and this is what he was so good at. He literally would have been the best, with all due respect to all your Toshba teachers, he would have been the best Toshba teacher. Because he was able to make the letters dance. He said as follows. Okay, who here knows the Ten Commandments? Does anyone here know the first of the Ten Commandments? Jared Samelo. No, you are not my God, but yes, that is correct. I am the Lord your God. If you were to then be the author of our Torah, Jared, and you would have written, I am the Lord your God, and you were giving the Jewish people your resume to tell them how great you are, I am the Lord your God, that did what? I would have finished that sentence, I am the Lord your God, who created the world. I mean, it doesn't get any more impressive than that. I am the Lord your God who created the world. I was writing the Torah. And I was telling the people that I'm about to give a Torah to, I am the Lord your God. And you know how impressive I am? I created the world. That's not what he says. Does anyone know what he does say? Yehuda. I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt. Now, Eva, that's impressive, is it not? It's impressive. But definitely, it's tier 2, which of course is better than tier 3. The more impressive thing clearly would have been so sorry. The more impressive thing would have been had God said, I am the Lord your God who created the world, and yet he doesn't say that. Can somebody tell me why God chooses to tell us that he is the Lord who took us out of Egypt, as opposed to the Lord who created the world? Let me give someone else a chance. David Cohn?
Because they experienced God taking them out of Egypt. They didn't
You can relate to it.
yeah.
Good,
It was
and
more
take it
recent.
one more step, both of you. One more step.
So it goes back to like part 4 about the LOK.
Great. Okay, good. So good. Already nailed it. Got it. You got it. If God tells us the more impressive of the two, which is good, admittedly, is that he created the world. Who did God create the world for?
Everybody.
That's as universal as it gets. I created the world for every single person who lives on this planet, Jew and non-Jew alike. I am the Lord who created the entire world. That's not what I'm trying to prove over here, man. Do you know why I have you gathered around this mountain? Because I am the Lord who took you out of Egypt. I'm not trying to impress you with my resume. I'm not looking for a job here. God is looking to demonstrate that there's a unique relationship between him and us. Whether you like that or appreciate that, that's not my business right now. That's what he was trying to do at Mount Sinai. I'm the Lord who took you out of Egypt. I care about you. I've done something for you. Let's start a relationship. And if that's the case, then all of a sudden now what makes sense? What made sense to Darren 5 minutes ago can hopefully make sense to us now. Look at that. If I have the word Elohim and I put a prefix in front of it, to God, from God, has that added anything? The moment I add a suffix, Elokeinu, this is our God. Elokechem, it's your God. That's demonstrating the relationship that we have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with our God. How can you dare obliterate that connection between us and God? What has greater Kedusha than the letters that are clarifying for us that there is a connection between us and him? So it's not simply so random. Whether you love the answer, like the answer, hate the answer, it's an answer. It is a very poignant answer because what it does is it takes this boring halacha, which seems to have no effect for any of us, and it underscores the fact that there's a relationship between us and God demonstrated by this common banal law. I can't erase a suffix because that set of letters is demonstrating that I have a connection with God. It's a very powerful thing. And that was something the Rebbe was able to do consistently. I'm sorry, Rebbe Horowitz, what time are we? Another 4 minutes. He does it again with, I'll just give you a quick one. He does the same thing again with prayer. And I wanted to just bring this example because I know a lot of us are talking about it in Gemara. Prayer, we discussed, is a biblical, rabbinic mitzvah. Machlokas, of course. Anyone know the machlokas between who and who? Rambam and Ramban. Beautiful. Okay, great. Now, that's not so exciting either. Anyone know when the Ramban, though, agrees with the Rambam? The Ramban, Nachmanides, agrees that there are situations where davening would be biblical. Seth Fisher. Oh, very good. Time of need. We call them 8 sarai. Time of need, a potential threat to your existence. Great. Now here's my question. The Rambam disagrees with that, correct? No. What Rabbi Soloveitchik said was, both the Rambam, who says that prayer every day is biblical, and the Ramban, who says prayer is only biblical at a time of a threat to your life, they both agree. They both agree 100%. So then what's the argument? The Rambam, Maimonides, who felt that you had to pray every day, was because the Rambam, who was a physician, knew full well how fragile, how frail human life was. He understood that a human being every day had to stand before God and say, God, I need you. Because if God forbid my small intestines would stop functioning today, I'd be in trouble. If my kidneys, God forbid, would shut down, I'm in big trouble. The frailty of a human being, the threat to our lives, must be felt on a daily basis. That's something a human being has to understand. Doesn't mean you have to be crazy about it all day long. But just a few times a day, a few moments, to stand before God and say, I need you to continue to sustain me. Because I realize the potential 8-star that I'm in every single day. Existence is frail and fragile. And the Rav was able to do this time and time again. What we all view, and I'm including myself, as a boring piece of Gemara, a boring Machlokas Rishonim, a boring Halach in the Shulchan Aruch. He was able to philosophically inject beautiful ideas and thoughts. And his whole worldview, his whole outlook, taking the secular world and advancing it, and joining that systematically with what we call the Torah world, was something that Rabbi Soloveitchik was so proud of. It was not something that we have to do because we're stuck with it. It's a worldview. And the circle that we live in, all of us, we live in the world of Weight Watchers. There are communities out there that will tell you, no, we don't trust you with anything. We don't trust you with the TV. We don't trust you with the internet. We don't trust you with newspapers and magazines, because you know what? We can't trust you any more than the Overeaters Anonymous guy on Slim Fast. You can't be trusted with these things. That's not the world that we live in. Every one of us are trusted with the bagels and the donuts. And our challenge and mission in life is to figure out the most healthiest balance to make ourselves the best people that we can be.